I've heard you say that for APP reporting, the three CQM measures have the same benchmarks whether they are submitted as eCQMs or MIPS CQMs, and that's not how I'm reading the benchmarks.
Jason, you're absolutely correct, and my apologies for misleading you. There's been some convergence and divergence of benchmarks over the last few years, but for 2023, the eCQM and MIPS CQM benchmarks are different for all three submittable APP measures. So let me refresh everyone's memory about this subject in total. We're talking about the APM performance pathway, that is the APP, representing the new quality standard for MSSP, that's the Medicare Shared Savings Program, ACOs. To review, there are 6 measures for the APP: 2 administrative claims measures, the CAHPS Experience of Care survey, treated as one composite measure, and 3 measures submittable by eCQMs or MIPS CQM mechanisms. In addition, for years 2021 through 2024 of the APP, ACOs, that is the MSSP ACOs, can continue to abstract charts and submit performance data for the 10 measures of the web interface, bringing their measure totals to 13. After reporting for the 2024 performance year, the web interface will be sunset and all MSSP ACOs will need to use eCQMs or MIPS CQMs. In overlap years, Medicare applies a favorable quality standard to MSSPs, switching early to the 3 MIPS CQM or eCQMs. In these years, Medicare grants full share of savings or reduced share of losses at a lower total score. I'll explain benchmarks. The 3 current APP CQM measures are number 1, hemoglobin A1C in diabetics, number 134, depression screening, and number 236, control of hypertension. Medicare calculates benchmarks every year for each measure from the data submitted, grouping submitted performance into 10 true deciles of performance, then mathematically adding additional 3 decimal places of discrimination. Yearly, the data is graded against the prior year's benchmarks calculations. It's not real decile or percentile ranking, but it's close. Medicare calculates separate benchmarks for each submission mechanism for each applicable measure. So there's a different benchmark for web interface than for claims submissions, than for administrative claims submissions, MIPS CQMs, and eCQMs. For 2023, for each of the 3 APP measures, a raw performance score submitted as an eCQM would get a higher translated rank score than would the same performance score as a MIPS CQM. That means if you could count on the same performance score from either mechanism, it would always be preferable to submit the eCQM. You'd get a higher comparative decile ranking. All measurements by all mechanisms are faulty to some extent. That's a subject nicely reviewed in a recent JAMA article. All measurement not only reflects true differences in performance, but it also reflects differences in the effectiveness of both your documentation and recovery of data. eCQMs are routinely less accurate than our MIPS CQMs. eCQMs underperform compared to MIPS CQMs on 2 issues. First issue is certification. If any step in your flow of data passes through a process that is uncertified or has lost its certification, that eCQM submission is invalidated and may be rejected. eCQM vendors, usually EHRs, but there's third parties as well, are certified by the Office of the National Coordinator, that is the ONC. Certification grades the ability of the vendor to read and write both QRDA1 and QRDA3 files. It's kind of a process measurement of measurement solutions. MIPS CQM vendors are qualified by CMS. Qualification is an annual review of capabilities and includes a periodic audit of results, more of an outcomes measure applied to measurement solutions. The second problem with eCQMs relates to missing data. Missing data, with rare exceptions, and I can't actually come up with an exception off the top of my head, always reduces calculated performance. eCQM process requirements are rigid. The process is highly sensitive to user compliance with strict documentation standards, and every deviation from standard has the potential to reduce calculated performance. MIPS CQM processes tend to be more flexible. Any reliable data source is usable. Search terms can be broadened and customized. Data can still be missed, and missed data still reduces calculated performance, but the far more flexible measurement is closer to accurate and typically a higher net result. I apologize for misleading you. This year's benchmarks are different for the eCQM and the MIPS CQMs.